Right, let's talk to Henry Bolton, former leader of UKIP, all-round good guy, OBE. Henry, before we get into what you wanted to talk about, which is cancelling the BBC, which is a good thing to talk about,
Sure.
I'm thinking we should do the government, and is there any, for treason, because this government has now cancelled or cut back its spending on the military as we are on the brink of a possible conflict with Russia, and they are sending hundreds of millions of pounds to armed services in other countries.
And we're running out.
Not to mention the fact they give China and India and all these countries that are against us in many ways money. What the hell is going on? Isn't that treason?
Unfortunately, Tony Blair, Labour Prime Minister, messed around with the Treason Act, tucked it away in the Public Order Act. And so now, actually, it's very difficult to get anybody done for treason. So Labour have kind of cooked the books for themselves in that sense.
Why did the Tories not reform it? Is it just a uni party? Are they all in on it?
Well, to be fair,
he's shouting when you've got him turned down. Sorry, not you, Henry. Hear me. He's just shouting.
Don't be rude to Henry.
To be fair, the Tory party didn't do a great deal of anything.
Did nothing.
Did they?
No. They carried on with Blairism.
But where the Tory party did nothing, we've now got a government that does a great deal of harm.
Yeah. Well, wait till Angela Rayner becomes Prime Minister.
Well, yeah, God help us. The people said that Labour couldn't be worse than the Conservatives. Well, Angela Rayner could be worse than Keir Starmer. But, yeah, I mean, look, I'm normally on your show talking about security issues.
Yeah.
I know the Russians well. I know the Russian ministers, some of the Russian ministers very well. I've worked with them in the past, Russian generals, the same with the Ukrainians. I was involved in, I was the lead of the European Union's crisis response team in Ukraine when this all kicked off in 14-15. And the fact that we are facing an increased military threat from Russia, both verbally and in practical terms, the Danes have still got a ship detained in the Kattegat Sea, which is sort of off Danish waters, if you like. Their navy is detaining a Chinese-flagged ship captained by a Russian citizen that is suspected of having severed the cables between Finland and Germany and Lithuania and Sweden. That is a hostile act. Now, where does that go? We don't know. But Russia, to some degree, sees itself at war with us. We've still got a government that's burying its head in the sand. So
it's escalating, isn't it?
Outrageous. I mean, the first duty of government is to protect its citizens.
Sorry, Henry, what is the chance, do you think, that Putin would, just as a warning, send a missile into the UK? Do you think he would?
I don't think he would, no. But I think disrupting us in other ways, severing communications cables, even power cables, because we import so much of our electricity from abroad. There's the wind farms and so on. We know they've been conducting reconnaissance of those wind farms. So there is a whole manner of ways that he can have a go at the
Chinese
UK without
run
triggering war.
Our Hinkley nuclear plant, isn't that part is French and Chinese owned, isn't it?
Yeah, there's all sorts of complications about the Chinese. You know, well, I won't go there.
It's all intertwined.
All night. But look, the point is, as I think James says, we are facing probably the most. I was in the army during the Cold War, and even then I would say the world was not as dangerous as it is right now in Europe.
Yeah, I agree.
And we have got a government that has cancelled the Conservative government's pledge to increase defence spending to 2.5% of GDP. So we're still at 2%, just creeping over. We are now falling behind Germany. We're falling behind Poland in arming ourselves. It is time this government woke up to the reality. And
we've fallen to the third level of freedoms, by the way. We used to be in the top one, and now we're in the third level, below a lot of bad countries.
But if Putin do anything, not only do I fear because our armed forces, who would fight incredibly well, but I fear for them because they are not being supported well enough. And they wouldn't be, in that sense, ready. But I also fear that we've got a Prime Minister who would basically wet himself if something like that happened. I don't think he is even capable mentally to comprehend.
So how do we get out of this situation?
In the chair and something might happen.
Yeah, but Putin would be bringing Trump in, wouldn't he?
Hang on.
Yeah.
How do we get out of this situation, Henry, when we are now being run by a bunch of people? The opposite side are not much better at all. We have someone like Nigel Farage, who, in my view, would make an excellent Prime Minister. I don't know whether you agree or not, but that doesn't matter. I think he would, and I think Trump will probably be good for the world for the next few years because no one's going to mess with him. And I don't think they'd mess with Nigel, but unfortunately, people seem to get out and vote in this country in the way their parents voted, and it's very difficult to get them away from the the sort of history of voting within their families. But something has to be done, because this man is not capable of running anything, let alone this nation. Well, and the people in the government at the moment, look at David Lammy. I mean, he's our foreign secretary.
But Putin
James,
wouldn't take us on because he's taking on the Americans if he does that, doesn't he?
Let Henry talk. Shush.
James, I'm actually going to... Sorry, James, I'm going to slightly contradict you. I think that Starmer can run something, but what he's doing is he's running it on ideological terms.
Yeah.
He doesn't give a stuff for the best interests of the United Kingdom and the British people. Yeah. What he gives a stuff about is pursuing his own ideology. And he's a Trotskyite. I mean, you know, this is the problem. What we're seeing is if you take that perspective, that position, that you are a Trotskyite, you follow a Trotskyist ideology, then we are seeing decisions that actually make sense from that point of view. But from the point of view of the British people, British business, British security, it makes no sense whatsoever. So we're on totally different tracks here with the Prime Minister. The nation is on one track in its interests, and the Prime Minister is on another. I mean, so he can run things, but how do we get rid of it? Well, I'm sorry to say that, you know, I'm not sorry that we live in a democracy, but before the general election, some of us were saying to as many people as we could, look, the Conservatives absolutely do not deserve your vote. Absolutely not. But do not let the Labour government in, Labour Party in, because in government they will be worse. And a number of people, hundreds of people, were saying to me, nobody can be worse than the Conservatives. Well, I hope they're ruining the day now, because actually it will be very, very difficult to stop this government going forward. The only thing that may happen is that the public gets so dissatisfied, so unhappy, that they take to the streets.
The government, the people now seem to be very keen on Remain, and they've done very well in the local elections. Are you heading that way, Henry, or not?
No, I mean, I've got a great deal of respect for what Nigel has done, past and present, and you know, he's got a powerful team with him. But no, I'm not a Reform member. I did speak to Nigel and to Richard Tice early on when they set up the party. They didn't want me in the party. You'd have to ask them why not. But I think now my problem with where Reform are is that they've not done very much that's different to anybody else. They've got Nigel's sort of very charismatic presentation, but at the end of the day, there's no more meat on the bones of their list of intents than anybody else. Is
Nigel weakening? A lot of people are saying he's not the same as he was at the start, and he seems to be going more towards the...
Well, I don't know. I
don't know. I'm not sure about that. I think he's...
No, I don't think. He's got a...
He's a politician, and he's playing, you know...
Playing the game. You've got to play the game.
And he also needs to keep his relationship warm with Trump. That's in the interest of the United Kingdom. So I support that. And I do think that there is no plan as such, for example, to stop the boats. They want to leave the ECHR, which I support. But when I ask, well, what is the connection in your sort of operationally, if you like, between leaving the ECHR and the boats stopping? Oh, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it.
They don't want to stop the boats, do they? It's become plain they want them to keep coming.
We're talking about reform. I support reform's intent.
No, reform don't.
But I support reform's intentions. But what I'd like to see is a political party somewhere saying, not only this is what we're going to do, but this is how we're going to do it. This is the resources that are going to be required to do it. This is the timeline, and this is how we're going to pay for it. And be open and transparent about all of that.
Good.
No party does that.
I'm afraid the problem with a lot in Parliament, there are so many rules and regulations, and now apparently they're going to try and cancel Nigel. They're going to try and make sure that he doesn't get invited to a lot of the meetings that a head of a party should be invited to, and he doesn't get asked to ask a question in PMQs. But I'm hoping...
This is ridiculous.
They got rid of him from the Senate off, and Starmer didn't even go himself.
Look, this is ridiculous. Look, and it's such stupid politics as well. It's another indictment of the Prime Minister and people around him if they tried to do that, because all it's going to do is play into Nigel's hands, and so it should do.
Now, before we finish this, what you came on to do, and we need to do this, although Lady W will be furious because she's a big fan of the BBC, you know, she likes those sort of period dramas.
I'm watching Rumbelows.
But now, you don't have a licence, you've got rid of it.
Yeah.
And I don't have a licence. But I hopefully watch legally. And if somebody knocks on my door and says, and I say to them, well, you can come into the house when you come back with a police officer and a warrant.
Yeah.
And then they tell you all this bollocks about, oh, no, I've got right of entry and everything else. They don't have any right of entry, as far as I know, at all, do they?
Well, as far as I know, they don't have right of entry, no, but the legislation and the rules over this are really complicated. And actually where this came from was that I got one of these letters saying, you know, we're going to send somebody round if you don't either buy a licence or tell us that you don't need one. So I rang the number on the letter and I said, look, I don't have a licence, after sort of being referred to online and whatever. But anyway, eventually I got through to somebody. And I said, look, I don't have a licence. I don't need a licence. I'm telling you that I don't want a licence. And I don't want any more of these letters. Thank you very much. Yeah. And she said, well, we can only stop the letters on a 6-month or 12-month duration. So after 6 months or after 12 months, we will send you another letter, whether you like it or not.
Why?
Basically.
Harassment.
Well, I said, well, the situation's not change. It won't change. I have no intention of getting it. She said, do you watch anything live? And I said, I watch some things live, but I don't watch the BBC and I don't watch any other television broadcast channel on television. So, I don't do that. Do you watch anything live? Now, this is where I had a problem with that conversation. Do you watch anything live on social media? Yes. And I gave the example. I watched the other day the Starship launch from SpaceX.
Star Trek.
That was good.
And that was broadcast on Twitter by SpaceX.
Yeah.
And she said, oh, well, you need a license for that. And I said, I do not need a license for that.
No.
And she said, well, if you're watching live TV on social media. Now, the problem I've got is that I wasn't watching live television from a television channel, which is what the legislation requires.
You're watching live streaming. That's different.
Yes, and the legislation and their rules refer to live streaming. But what it's in relation to, and people should be aware of this, is TV channels.
ITV, BBC.
Yeah, correct. And if you, but the way that it's put across, if somebody maybe slightly less robust than myself had made that phone call, as I did, and was told what I was told, I'd have probably said, okay, I probably need to buy a licence then. Okay? But and I have a real problem with that. More broadly, I have a problem with people being charged a TV licence to watch TV programmes that do not benefit from the TV licence fee.
But, you know, the thing is, I don't think people understand this. The TV licence has nothing to do really with the BBC, although they're involved. You are supposed to have a TV licence if you use a TV receiver. But the money only goes to the BBC.
And a bit's Channel 4.
Well, I actually, James, just so that we don't mislead anybody, it's not just a TV receiver as such. If you watch live television programming, so if you watch television as it's being broadcast, whatever program it is, on any whatever channel it is, even if you're watching it through YouTube or you're watching it through social media, then on your computer, on your telephone, then you still need a TV license.
But not for TalkTV, because we are only on YouTube. We used to be a TV channel, but we're not now. But people even here get confused by it, and that's what they make millions of pounds from.
And I did test that. I did mention TalkTV, and I was told, oh, well, it's a TV station.
No.
Yeah, you need a license.
We do everything.
Correct. But if you're broadcasting, I mean, it's an interesting thing. But if you're broadcasting live, and I'm watching your programme as a TV channel live, then I should have a licence fee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this whole thing has grown legs in all sorts of manners, and the regulations are messy, and I think they're deliberately so.
Yeah, willfully
because what they want to do is
misunderstanding
rope
it to
in
make you pay for a licence.
They're losing licence fee payers,
Yeah.
and so now they've broadened the net effectively.
But it's most let's just finally remind people, they do not have the right to come into your home, because the people who get caught, invite them in, the television's on in the corner, and they've been watching a TV without a licence, they're going to get done.
Yeah.
So my suggestion is that if you haven't got a licence and you're watching TV, of course, at the moment you should have one. Otherwise you're breaking the law.
Look, a police officer only has authority to enter your premises in very specific circumstances as well. So yeah, I think there is. I mean, so that there's no, nobody comes back at either yourselves or at me.
Yeah.
People can Google this. There's a huge amount of information from the BBC licensing or from the licensing authority. Just Google it. Do I need a television license?
Yeah.
And it will give you chapter and verse. And it will tell you what you do and don't need it for. But the thing is, you will get a headache reading through it because I think it's deliberately designed so that they can catch out the people.
But there are also a lot of political bias. Their journalism is bent, and there's a lot of people, like Jewish people, who are saying, well, they're causing anti-Semitism. Why should I buy a licence? And they shouldn't.
Agree. And the licence fee, whatever you're watching, maybe you have a licence fee because you want to watch a station that is not BBC, and you're watching this station. You don't watch any other station, and you're determined you're not going to watch the BBC. You hate it. You don't want to watch it. But still, that licence fee only goes to funding.
You can watch ITV not on live, but you can watch them later on ITV Player, and that's all right without a licence.
He's yelling the whole time.
If I had to get that point across, you can watch all of them, apart from iPlayer.
Henry, be quiet. Henry, thank you very much indeed, sir. We'll talk again soon, I feel free. Henry Bolton, OBE, thank you very much indeed for that.